Hi, this is Michael Adams for CEO Roaster and Stock-Telegraph, and I have the pleasure to have Ron Rieder again. You might remember Ron, we did, I think like 3 months ago, we did the first webinar for Galileo Exploration Ltd. And trading, oh, by the way, trading on the TSX Venture as GXL. And there was some exciting news release yesterday, and we're going to discuss that in detail. But before we do this, I would like to, Ron to run us through the whole year of 2017. So what have been the milestones that have been achieved? And then we're talking about the news release, which was fairly exciting. And as a special, Ron brought some exclusive pictures of rock and drill core to present to us. So Ron, thanks for taking the time out of your busy day, and welcome back to the CEO Roaster webinar. Let's start with kind of a recap of 2017, which is almost done now. Bring us up to speed what you guys achieved.
Well, Michael, thank you very much for having me back and doing an update on the interview that we did about 3 months ago. I think it was July.
I think so, yeah.
That we had a chance to introduce your viewers to Galileo exploration. So two things just really briefly to what you had said. First off, we have received our LEI number. I know other companies like to news release that because of the importance, but you'll see that the news release that I put out yesterday has no mention of it. I got it just Wednesday, I guess it was. So
it's good to have it. Yeah, for the guys that are not familiar, that's something which is a G20 regulation, and starting from next year, every company that does not have an LEY number on the Frankfurt Exchange will be delisted, right? So this is why it's important for all the Canadian companies to have that. So good job.
Yes, excellent. The other thing I wanted to say is the exclusive core photos and things that your viewers are going to see will be posted on the website. Now that I put this news out, I haven't expanded on it because visual interpretation is very difficult and dangerous. So, but you know, the viewers, the shareholders, you know, they deserve to know what is going on inside the company. So about 2 weeks ago, when I was putting together the marketing package because I was going out to Toronto, I thought it might be an idea to put a chronology of what we've done this year together, just to see, you know, if I have been earning the money that I've been getting paid to bring this company along, right? So, in any event, we've done a lot this year. Considering I was put on the as the CEO around mid-January. At the time, I still had my delicatessen as well, so I ended up selling that 2 months later, and then going full time on the Galileo exploration at that point in time. But I can happily say we've entered into a 20-year option agreement. So I can happily say that everything that I had set down as goals at the beginning of the year have been achieved for 2017, and I think I can be pretty proud of my team and all the I call them players because it's really a team effort to get something as complicated as an exploration company from ground zero to doing drilling within 12 months time, right? And that included, just to go through the list really quickly, in February, we announced that we had entered into a 20-year option agreement with Buster Hunsaker out of Nevada for the Majuba Hill Copper Project, which has been known for over 100 years. In 1906 is when they first started to actually mine copper from the Majuba Hill Copper Project, right? So, and in the interim, they've had about 2.8 million pounds of copper produced at a grade of 4 to 12%. So with some of these historical facts in hand, and with copper prices starting to bump up against a breakout, it was a decision which was outside of what we had originally set as corporate goals which was to do gold exploration in Nevada. But when I did my homework and I talked to a number of contacts, they said any asset that is valuable or could be valuable, it's what it costs you to acquire it, maintain it on a year-to-year basis while you are making your discovery, and what is the potential value of it in in a global marketplace. So the Majuba fit all of those things. Now, the next step was to raise some money. So I went out and I found $500,000. That was completed in April. In June, I was able to get a couple of top-level people to sign on to our advisory board, and they've been instrumental in helping part of the team from an outside source, right? So the beauty there is that and I hope none of them find this video, but is we don't have to pay them. We give them a few options, and they contribute their expertise. So that was in June. Now, and unbeknownst to me, the exchange would require us to do a 43-101 report in order to get their approvals on this project. So, and what I meant by unbeknownst to me is the legal advice that I had was saying that it probably wouldn't, because it was not necessary at this stage on the Majuba.
Okay.
So when the request came through, luckily I was prepared with a technical analyst who got on it within 2 days and finished the whole report within 6 weeks. So again, with the team, so Alan Morris is the guy's name. With the team, we were able to get enough input and enough angles and enough eyeballs on it that when it went back to the exchange, they passed it on the first reading. They didn't even send it back with any deficiencies. They sent it back saying, we've approved you. And that's, nobody in and around the company, even our legals, have never seen that before.
Yeah.
So it's part of the pride that I like to establish within the company. It's not perfection. It is when you have a team that all works together and in the same direction, then you get a product which is professional, you get a product which is complete, and you get a product which you're not going to have to pay the legals to go back and forth with the regulatory bodies. So in that regard, try to save some money for the company on those things that I'm somewhat specialized in, paperwork. In any event, so we got the approvals, and that was July 26th, and you can see how quickly, so August 9th, how quickly I already had the contract in place for the IP, because the induced polarization chargeability study was the first thing that we had to do to confirm some of the past anomalies, and then to grow the anomalies that we already that we were going to be putting into place. So we're not putting the anomalies in place. We're seeing if confirmation is there, and then so what Durango had done is they did the 3 lines, and on each one of the lines, our technical advisor Gary Nordine noticed that there was to the east an extension or something that was of interest, right? So and his original thesis was that it was moving south, or that the potential porphyry was to the south of the Majuba. So we got kind of lucky because we had extended those lines far enough to the east that Gary could see that there was something of interest in that direction. So we doubled the size of that line, and lo and behold, the very first line showed us a remarkable 1.2 kilometer anomaly which had not been uncovered before, right? And that was to the south and to the east. So using that as our barometer, and and using the new readings that we got a remarkably different and much larger footprint than what we had initially anticipated. Right. Initially, we had it was 500 wide by 700 long, and now this new anomaly had turned that to 800 long and up to 1.2 kilometers wide. So it was 500, and then it was 800 meters, and then 1.2 kilometers. So it showed us that there was a much larger footprint out there, and it showed us how a porphyry works, and that is by finding the path of least resistance to get to the obvious place, which is where everybody has been working on in the past, right? Which is the Majuba Hill. Okay. So that was a real eye opener, and it gave us that idea that we were really onto a significant porphyry system. All right, so we'll fast forward from that. For drilling, I had to raise a few more dollars, so I raised another $500,000, and this was to do about 1,500 feet of drilling, and we had 2 holes mapped out that we wanted to complete. One at within 300 meters of a previous hole which had shown some sulfides in it, and then a long extension of that to where the large anomaly was, right? So we called in a company called Wagner and Wagner Drilling, and they started working for us somewhere in the neighborhood of, well, we had contracted them in October, and they came to work and started drilling on around November the 4th is when they started. Okay. So, and it was anticipated 100 to 140 feet a day. These professional drillers were doing 200 feet a day and using very little water, which meant that the structure was quite tight. And what that also meant is that instead of spending $125 US per foot as a approximate on how much it was going to cost us, our costs went down to about $100 US a foot. So that remarkable savings was because of their efficiencies and because of some of the contingencies that we had estimated were not as aggressive as we had first expected. So that what that meant is that we could do more drilling because we weren't spending the money, right? So we ended up drilling a 3rd hole as well, which we are really glad that we did, because it seems to be a really interesting hole, a very interesting hole. So so what that meant overall is that we ended up expanding our drilling from 1,500 feet to just shy of 3,000 feet. Mm-hmm. And so again, as I mentioned earlier about saving money on the, with the lawyers and that sort of thing, we look for efficiencies on everything that we do so that we can benefit our shareholders. And one of the things that your viewers might see in our share structure is that the insiders own over 50% of the of the issued shares, so the free trading shares. And when you include the warrants, we own over 60% of the fully diluted issued and outstanding shares. So, so although shareholders are considered when we do any spending of money, it's our own money that we're spending on behalf of the shareholders as well, right? And I've always been a proponent of management that is able to be efficient, spend the money where they're supposed to, but there's a lot of expenses when it comes to running a public company, from your legals to your your audits to your any kind of expense that the regulator can throw at you, they will, right? Because they're in the business of making money.
Ron,
Sorry, Mike.
before we dig into the news release that was published yesterday, do you like to say a couple of words about the acquisition that you did in September? Oh, sorry, that was
Yes.
in September.
Yeah, we started it in September. Yeah. So again, one of the corporate philosophies that was stated, I believe, on this, even on the previous video, was the fact that we wanted to have a double barrel shotgun. So we wanted to make sure that if Plan A was inconsequential, that we would have a Plan B that we could fall back on. So we went out and got the property that that Michael is alluding to, and that itself is the Signal property, which is over, it's in the Carlin trend, and it's Ruby Hill. It's right beside that producing mine, which is again, it goes in conjunction with what our original plan was in order to have a second project online. So, and the carrying cost of the projects too, that was something that we were very cognizant about. We wanted to make sure that whatever we got on, A, had a big footprint, B, had some work already done on it, so that we could compile that data and then have a good shot at where the gold might be. We wanted to be close to a producer. We wanted to, so this really had all of the earmarks that we wanted to, bring into the company as a quote unquote fallback position if the Majuba was unable to.
So I understand you that you're not going. So this is, as you said, yeah, it was a good opportunity. You secured the project or the option to get the project, but it's more right now. You're not going to actively work on it, because there's not too much expenditures connected with it. But it's kind of a fallback, if, for example, there's a delay in Majuba or something like that. So you have something else to work on.
Absolutely, absolutely. I wouldn't. Let's not. I'm not going to call it a fallback, because on its own right, it has the opportunity of being a a multi-ounce gold deposit, right? So in its own right, it has the opportunity to be what we're looking for, and that's, we're hunting for elephants, is what we're hunting for, right? So,
but it's not. But it's not the immediate focus of the company to develop the Signal Gold project. You are right now, and for 2018, you are 100% focused on Majuba Hill.
Majuba Hill is going to be a monster. We'll know that after we get the first drill results, if it is going to be a monster. I mean, and absolutely, Michael, you're correct. We will focus all of our efforts and on the Majuba Hill copper project, if it pans out to be the type of opportunity that we get a sense of here.
Okay, cool. So, and let me bring up
now just
oh, sorry.
I said in any company you want to have more than one opportunity, right? So that's why we brought the Signal in. Now, upon doing some more homework, what I found out is that a copper porphyry is almost always associated with 3, 4, 5, 6 deposits within a 10-mile area of the mother deposit. Okay, so what that then said to me is I'm no longer going to be looking far and wide for other project opportunities. I'm going to expand the footprint that Majuba could possibly be, so that if we have separate deposits within and I'm looking within an 8-kilometer range, so 5-mile range, that picking up all of the opportunities that are in that, any showings that historically have been there. So even though we may look like the expansion and acquisition of other properties is not part of the corporate agenda, it very much is. And we have that opportunity right under our noses with the Majuba, and how a porphyry, splits out and is able to, as I said earlier, have 6 different and distinct deposits within a short range. So, and as a wise man once told me, if you do have a discovery, you get neighbors very quickly.
That's right.
So, so that's why we are doing what we need to do in order to increase that footprint at this point in time, at the same philosophy of the least cost is staking, and is and entering into contract negotiations with those that we would like to have, but are held by other parties at this point in time.
Okay.
So
that sounds good.
Yeah.
I just brought up the news release that you guys published yesterday, December 7th, which is kind of the conclusion of the phase 1 exploration program. And yeah, run us through that. So what has been the objective? What has been achieved? What are the next steps on the news release, based on the news release yesterday?
Yeah. What's funny is when we look at the chronology of growth and you see the overall picture of what, the separate segments that have been completed this year, and then you drill down, or you take it down into, or break it down into the specifics of each one of those events, that's encapsulated in what we see here as the phase 1 exploration has been completed. In other words, it may only be a few words on the chronology, but here's the breakdown on what we've been doing, behind the scenes. So we were lucky enough to have a lot of data, historical data on it, but you still got to confirm that historical data is accurate. We did. I've been down on the property now 5 times. I've taken videos of the old core. I've taken videos of the property. Several pictures, as you alluded to. And then kind of like shop them around so that I could get opinions of other people and ideas from other people on how to best go about the next segment. So compilation, we did geologic orientation, which is pre to the IP study. Then we did the IP study. And then we did the drilling. So this is all phases of an exploration company to get to that stage of discovery, right? And probably the difference is that because, again, we had all of that historical information, we were able to get to drilling inside of, well, we announced it in February. We got it in July. We were drilling in November 4th, and we're finished drilling.
Yep.
And it's basically we finished on November the 28th or 29th. So within if we went July, August, September, October, November, within 5 months, we went from receiving approval on us being allowed to have that 20-year lease agreement to drilling the first targets that we had come up with through the IP confirmations. So again, it takes a team to do all of those things, and to do it efficiently and do it correctly. So and I want your viewers to know that these are the kind of projects that we look for, things that are what they call drill ready, right? And drilling to a discovery at a low cost. Like how much money have we spent on getting from the regulator to drilling, and then the drilling itself, it'll all be less than $500,000. Okay. And to get the holes in the ground. Now, before that, I had to clean up the shell a little bit, and so there's a few more dollars spent. But From the time we got the okay to putting the stuff in the ground, we were able to do that in less than $500,000 and actually take the stuff out. And that includes the lab results, which we are anticipating, the logging, and and all of those things. So again, a team effort, and we're pretty damn happy, how that team has performed up until this time, right?
Okay.
And I can see that happening. Yeah.
Ron, you mentioned the lab results. So the core has just been shipped to the lab, right? So when do you expect the first results to be released?
So what I asked our guys in Nevada to do was to take the first half of the first hole and saw it and log it and ship it, and that was done on November the 29th. So
Okay.
that's the first half of the first hole, because I wanted to get the systems with the labs in place and running on a smaller batch,
Okay.
instead of just bringing them all the holes at once and then
Yep. That makes sense.
regurgitating all of that. So and those results, so like I said, November the 29th is when they went in. Figure 3 weeks. So we could have our first results around Christmas time.
For Christmas Eve, yeah.
For Christmas Eve, yes. Now the first hole was very interesting. The surface had the oxides. Well, you know what? It was very interesting. The most interesting part of it was the fact that we had 900 feet of pipe, because we had anticipated only having to go 700, maybe 750 feet. So we only brought in 900 feet of pipe, and we went through some interesting stuff, and then we went through some of the host rock, and Gary Nordine kept saying, it has to be here, it has to be here, because of some of the other things that he'd seen. And that 880 feet, we got into what is some of the interesting core that we're going to have a look at in a couple of minutes here. At 880 feet, we had 902 feet of rod of steel. So we got pretty damn lucky to get into that. And Gary knew it was there because of some of the other things that he had seen. We just had not anticipated that the uplift of the host rock would cause quite a big section, which looked like it was fired through with sulfides, sporadically, intermittently, through all the cracks and fissures. But so we knew, he smelled that there was something there. And again, at 880 feet, we got something pretty interesting. So
let me just bring up what everybody is looking for, which is kind of the pictures, sure. I guess. So let me just figure that out.
Yeah, why don't you do that, and then I can tell people a little bit more about.
So that's perfect. So,
and these will all be on our website, so that
sure.
This is brand new information, which we're now going to be making public, mainly because I've got the people in place in that are doing the acquisitions of the properties and stuff for us. So,
right.
Yeah. So as the viewers can see, if you look in the background, it's your really typical Nevada scenario here. We're the floor of this valley is at 4,000 feet, and we're up we're at about 5,000 feet, and the top of the Majuba is a little over 6,000 feet, right? So it's quite a beautiful vista that you get from there. So
sure.
The picture on the right is myself with the orange helmet on, and Wes Adams, who is he's been writing big checks. Him and his father have written a total of well over $500,000 Canadian in checks. Now, just to give you an idea, Wes Adams, his father is John Adams. John Adams, his father was Bob Adams, who was the first uranium producer in the United States. Okay, so John came on and took over when his father was retired. came in, took over the family assets and uranium coal production. They recently sold their uranium assets all to Energy Fuels.
Okay.
So those assets are still ongoing.
Okay.
Now Wes, as I said, has written some big checks. He has just sold his private company, which he had sold in April of this year. I've asked him to come on the board of directors, and he's agreed to do that. Our AGM is coming up on December the 20th.
Okay.
So he'll stand to be a director, and if elected, then I'm going to propose that he become the president of Galileo Exploration.
Okay.
Right now, I have two titles. I am president and
CEO.
CEO, or CEO and president. So he's going to come in and take the responsibility of president, which is a lot more to do with the exploration and the groundwork. So he's based in Colorado, which puts him a lot closer, and he can drive out to the property in about 10 hours. So
okay,
right. So
that makes sense.
yeah,
sense. Okay.
yeah. So what you could see behind Wes and myself was the opening to the old producing mine. Exactly. So we went in there and we took a few pictures, and that's what Michael here is going to flip to on the next page of photos. And the one on the left, that's as pure copper that as you can get, which is native to there. And this is kind of an example of what they were mining. This is, whatever percentage this is, but this is high grade copper, and it's hard to tell in this picture the size of it, but in circumference it was probably about 6 feet in circumference, right? Okay. So if we drew a circle around it. Now, as I was alluding to about being down at 880 feet on hole number 1, this is a picture of the core that we got at the bottom of hole number 1, right? Again, and it's just a visual on it, but this is what Gary Nordine was hoping we would find. This type of a look, okay, right? Which is the outer sphere of a porphyry, right? Okay. As you get deeper into a porphyry, we'll note that it's more sulfides, which are white, and those sulfides are, I guess you could say, it would be like when you get volcanic residue and it's able to be compressed, so you get a very porous system, and that's why it turns white. But on the edge of it, when you have the contact with the host rock, often you get what are called gossans, and gossans are the weathering that has transpired over the millions of years, and compacted residue from the oxides, which has been like washed down closer to the water table, and then compacted with the outer core of the of a porphyry, copper porphyry. Okay. So this is why we're quite encouraged and quite lucky that we got to this zone in the last 20 feet of the steel that we had anticipated. We'd only need 750 right. feet, and we were at.
Then we switch to there's another picture.
So this is some more of the same thing. This is the sulfides that I was mentioning earlier, the right. White, which is blasted into the into the surrounding rock because of the volcanic eruptions, and so here is where that was at 880 feet. Those previous pictures. This is now at 902 feet. So right at the very bottom of the hole, you can see how it's a lot wider. And you can see how the pyrite has been embedded along with what looks like quartz. And one of the important things that we look for is the veining in the cores, because the veining is, of course, where the minerals are able to come into that rock and then be mined from the sulfides. So we've got a number of good indicators here. It looks like we've got pyrite. Pyrite is iron. Iron is almost always associated with copper. So again, results will only be important once we get the lab reports. So
Sure.
I think we have a couple more, right? Okay,
Yeah.
so here's again. This is a continuation of the thoughts before, where you got the veining. You've got the veining inside of that. It looks black. It's called tourmaline, which is also a host of copper oxides, right? And then you've got some more pyrite blotches like that too, which are indicative of again iron, and iron is a host of copper oxides. So,
Okay.
Again, this is as the previous core was right at that contact zone. Now, copper comes in several different colors when you have chalcopyrite. When you have, yeah, I'm not even going to start to do geological terms, but
No.
this. So the blue tint that seems to be in this picture here is somewhat associated with copper oxides as well, right?
Okay.
So here you get more of an image, a direct on look at a very small section of this core, where you see again the sulfides in the white. You see a bit of a blue tinge, and you see the veining in there as well. So, and here in the background on this here, you can see how what we're looking at up front is like a greenish core, and in the background you see it's more whitish, right? So, and that whitish again, that's the sulfides. That's what brings the copper to the host rock, right? So, and here too, I mean, it has great colors. It has what looks to be a lot of pyrite. So it's got, what Gary considers the right ingredients to being, a host for mineralization. All right. So now this is one of the reasons that I wanted to put in the first half of hole one into the lab as quickly as they could get it prepared. So now this is why I take pictures like this and I send it to people that I know to see if they have an opinion on what the core might be, right? And the analogy that I got, and pretty quickly from a couple of different people, was that this looked very similar to a core that came from, it's called the Captain property, which has a high-grade area, which is what they were noting that this stuff looks very similar to. So again, when we get a little more microscopic on the bottom of the hole, you can see the different colorations. You can see quite easily, you can see the injected sulfides. You can see some of the veining, right? And you can see what is indicative from other holes that have been mineralized in other projects, right? So again, the analogy is that they look good, but until you get the reports back from the labs, looks and a quarter won't even buy you a coffee these days. Right. So the other thing I wanted to point out on holes H2, which is the second half of hole 1, and hole 2 and hole 3, is that we're sawing and logging those as we speak, and we anticipate that hole 2 is going to be put in later because of what we had seen at the bottom of 1 and through a long distance in hole number 3. Hole 3 really opened our eyes to the potential of this, and I think we're going to have some core shots of hole 3 in the pictures that I sent you. Okay. So this when we collared the first hole, I was standing there, and the driller gave me the rock from the top, from the very top. It was, like about a 6-inch piece of rock that was round, and this is what it looked like. So these are oxidized. This is in an area of oxidation. So again, if this runs with mineralization, then the top of hole number 1 could have some oxides that may be mineralized. So
okay, so this is one of the pictures from hole 3.
That is correct. Yes, exactly. So as I noted there, it's at 760 feet, and here you can see what's called the stockwork veining. Right? There's multiple veins in here. There's colorations. It's broken up. It's not like a solid core, which means it's permeable, or it can be injected with the the mineralization. You can see how we know it's sulfides because it is white, right? And it's broken down in the form of being able to accept mineralization, right? So, and that's again indicative of other cores in other projects that have been mineralized, right? Okay. So, in that regard, it's important to recognize that we have interesting scope, but again, until we get anything back from the lab, there's just no way to say that this is economic. There's no way to say that this is anything other than visually similar to what other companies have done in finding ore bodies. So that the previous picture was a close-up, and you can see how white it was. Here, if we were to bring this picture more into perspective, so closer to us, you would see how you've got the white sulfides, you've got the tourmaline injection, you've got the massive stockwork veining, you've got the broken up pieces, so the core is not coming in solid, which tells you how brittle it is and how permeable it was at one point in time. So all of those things are necessary in order to have a massive sulfide deposit, right? So okay. As mentioned earlier, that the green stuff was at the contact zone, which may have been gossinous in that it was greener because it had collected some of the minerals that had been leached into it. And now we see what it would look like in a, in the zone itself, right? Okay. Where you've got, it's white, which are the sulfides, and it's injected with tourmaline through massive stockwork veining, and it is, a potential host for mineralization. Okay. So it's, it's all really interesting. When we look at it that way, it's very interesting. They can take a look at that and digest it and recognize that, it's 8 cents, it's 9 cents, right? Right. We have a total market cap of, $3 million, and hopefully we're on the precipice of a something extremely interesting. I've had some commentary from people that know what core looks like, and it's all been quite positive. It's all been very positive. So, yeah.
So
You know,
my two cents would be that everybody who has an understanding of geology, should really take a look at the core, make up their mind if that's a good investment. For all the other guys, that are not geos, including me, maybe wait for the results to come back from the lab. Right, because as you said, that's visuals, but results from the lab are something different. But that's in the not too distant future. It's only like 3, maximum 4 weeks to go before you can come up with the first part of the results, and then you will send the second chunk to the lab. There will be more results coming into January. In January, I'm definitely going to pin you down. I will be in Vancouver. I'm going to pin you down. Not sure if you will have some core that we can have, that I can touch and take a look at and hold into the camera.
That's a good. I'll make sure to get some up here.
We're definitely going to catch up in January. So and until then, again, thank you very much.
And I do have a booth. I just reserved a booth on Tuesday. I got one of the last 2 booths. I got that, and in hole number 3, just to give you your viewers a complete and utter blue sky imagination, I guess you could say. We brought in 300 extra feet of pipe, so we were able to go down to 1,200 feet, and due to whatever technical issues, we ended up at 1,142 feet, and then we stopped because it was, it was no need to go any further. We had been in visual mineralization for 800 consecutive feet, and which doesn't mean anything other than the fact that what I just said. So, and at the end of the hole, we were still in mineralization.
Right.
Okay. And so that's what we're potentially looking for. And a couple of words that have been used by people that are a lot more knowledgeable than me is monster, elephant, and there must be a herd of elephants around here.
I think there's almost no better way to end this video than with these statements from
promotion
experts. So again, Ron, always a pleasure. Thank you very much. If I don't have the chance to talk to you, happy holidays for you and your family. And we definitely catch up in January. Take care.